Many people have suggested that I played Dragon Ball GT Final Bout. Some claimed it to be the worst Dragon Ball game ever, while others praised it, saying that it was a nostalgic game from their childhood. Yeah, so those latter people, I would not let them into your house. Dragon Ball GT Final Bout is definitely up there with the worst of the worst when it comes to the franchise, and I am glad that I was never subjected to this game in my childhood. I had suffered enough with Ultimate Battle 22. In fact, Final Bout and Ultimate Battle 22 share many of the same flaws that ruin the gaming experience. They're like some sort of demonic twins.
What the heck?
Dragon Ball GT Final Bout was released in 1997 for the PlayStation 1. In Japan and Europe, the game is known as Dragon Ball Final Bout. I'm not sure why the North American version added the GT, as Dragon Ball GT had only been out for a year in Japan when this game was released. Now, I'm not from America, so I don't know when the US first got to see the GT series, but in New Zealand, I don't think it aired on TV till 2004, or was it 2003? I can't remember, but it was definitely way after 1997. So for those of you who played this game back in the day, did you know what GT was?
That mustache has got to go. It makes you look like a total geek. It makes you look like a total geek. Total geek. Total geek. Total geek. Total geek.
The game begins with a beautifully animated 2D opening, all in the style of the GT anime series. To be honest, I'm not a fan of the GT anime, but I love the animation style. The first half of the opening features mostly just Dragon Ball Z villains and characters, apart from Goku, who is in his GT attire. Given the game's title, you'd think there'd be more emphasis on the GT characters, but they don't appear until the latter half of the opening. Although, as previously stated, the original name is simply Dragon Ball Final Bout, so it makes sense, I guess. Except for the music, the Japanese opening is identical. The Japanese version features The Biggest Fight, a song written specifically for the game and sung by Hironobu Kageyama. The American version is instrumental and the sound effects have also been removed. Aside from this opening, the music in the game is probably the best part. The tracks have a nice energy to them and do their best to elevate the action. Final Bout has a very typical 90s localization, with the translation being a little off in a lot of areas, but not unreadable, just not the best. Some of the characters' names aren't what we've come to expect, such as Kid Goku being called Little Goku. Instead of being referred to as Super Saiyans, some characters are just given the moniker Super in front of their names, but then others are called Super Saiyans. It's a bit inconsistent. And like in Ultimate Battle 22, Boo is spelt as Boo, a scary ghost. The character portraits that pop up before a match are really cool looking. The voices that accompany them are not what I was expecting.
Now, should I clean the trash of the universe?
They aren't the Funimation cast or the Ocean dub. They are, well, I have no idea. I don't think they are credited anywhere. The voices aren't bad, they're just very different. Vegeta sounds quite regal.
Alright, I'm going to destroy you, Kakarot.
GT Trunks sounds like he's over 35.
I don't have time to waste here.
And Goku sounds, well...
Ah! Hurry up and show me your real strength!
Yeah, annoying. The game does not always use English voiceovers. They are used only during character selection and at the beginning and end of a fight. The rest of the time they revert to Japanese. The backgrounds are very simplistic and plain. They don't look that great, but at least it helps the characters to stand out. The only interesting stage is the one with the lightning. It's very atmospheric. The character models are really blocky. It was very much a product of its time. 3D models in games were still relatively new in 1997, and this is the first Dragon Ball game to include them. The models remind me a lot of the Final Fantasy VII models. Given the limitations, they did manage to at least make the models look like the characters they are supposed to be. They honestly don't look that bad, just a bit dated. Probably the worst looking is Cell. He just looks really stiff and moves really stiff. In fact, everyone moves in a really stiff way. The in-game animations are subpar at best and definitely contribute to the bad game feel that plagues this title. Where do I even begin? Dragon Ball GT Final Bout feels bloody awful to play. The basic controls are straightforward. The D-pad can be used to move forwards and backwards, but the default movement speed is extremely slow. If you want to move faster than a snail, then you need to use the L1 and R1 triggers to dash forwards and back. There are dedicated punch, kick and key buttons, as well as a guard that never seems to work. All of these controls can be found in the configuration menu and are easily figured out by fiddling around for a while. However, this is the only information about the controls provided by the game, at least in the game itself. Yes, this is one of those games where you absolutely must have the manual to learn how to play. There is no tutorial or combo list to help you learn how to play. Instead, there is a training mode hidden within the options menu for some reason. And this mode is very basic. It's just an arena where you can fight other characters who don't fight back, don't move, don't guard, and don't even get back up after being knocked down.
He's already dead.
I ended up going online and finding the manual, which actually tells you how to play, although it still does not list all of the combos. But just because I had a better understanding of the game and could use the combos now, didn't make it any more enjoyable to play. The input delay is appalling. To perform special key attacks and melee combos, you must use the correct button sequence and have the right timing. However, due to the game's lag, you'll frequently find yourself failing to execute them. A lot of the time, I couldn't even tell whether I was pressing the wrong buttons or if my timing was just off due to the unresponsive controls. It's difficult to have fun when the game treats your inputs as suggestions rather than commands. The hit detection is also terrible. Frequently it appears that an attack should have landed but does not. It is at its worst when fighting against a smaller opponent and when flying. Fighting in the air is the worst. The hit detection is worse, the controls are worse, and the camera is worse. If you hit your opponent back hard enough, the camera will follow them, making your character go off screen, meaning that you can't see what you're doing. And it does it all the time. I tried to avoid flying at all costs. The HUD includes a health bar as well as a key gauge. When you use key attacks, the key gauge is depleted. You can manually refill it by holding down the guard and punch buttons. Above these bars there are two settings, Meteor and Demo. Meteor Smash is a series of attacks that can be chained together up to a maximum of 10 times. At least I think 10 is the max. That's what the manual implies anyway. For the Meteor attack to continue, you must press a specific button combination. Your opponent can respond by entering the appropriate counter move at the right time. It's similar to Dragon Rush in some ways, but much more confusing and difficult to grasp. But one advantage this game has over Budokai 3 is that you can disable this feature. The demo allows you to see special knockout tricks, which are powerful ki blasts like the iconic Kamehameha. When using these attacks, your opponent can counter them by launching their own ki blast, guarding or deflecting it. In order to perform any of these counters, the correct button must be pressed before the word counter disappears. However, it does not always appear to work properly. Guarding seemed to be the most consistent, but getting the other two methods to work is a bit of a crapshoot. None of these features appear to be particularly bad on their own, but the game's extremely sluggish controls make performing any of these mechanics a complete nightmare. You have to wait 2 seconds for your character to register your move, and the hit detection is terrible, resulting in you whiffing half of your attacks.
Get off my head, I'm trying to concentrate!
When it comes to the game modes, Final Bout has few options. There are only 3 if you exclude the training mode I mentioned earlier. Battle mode is essentially an arcade mode in which you can play against the computer or another player. When playing against the computer, it will choose a character at random, even if you haven't unlocked them yet. You can have as many continues as you want in this mode, so it eventually becomes a war of attrition. If you make it through all of the rounds, you will be able to fight Super Baby in his Great Ape form, during which the camera has a mental breakdown because it doesn't know what to focus on. What the hell is even going on? These next two modes are nearly identical to those found in Ultimate Battle 22. Build-up mode allows you to fight different tiers of opponents while improving your character's stats. The stats that are improved are determined by how you fight. You can save your character's progress to a memory card and bring it to a friend's house to fight with, if your friend is just as sadistic as you are. This is the only way to save any characters you've unlocked, because when you reset the game you lose all of your unlocked characters. This is probably why they have codes to unlock all of the characters, otherwise it would be extremely annoying. There are only 17 characters in total, with 5 of them being different Gokus and 3 of them being different Trunkses. You'll want to use the unlockable characters because they are far more powerful than the others, especially Super Saiyan 4 Goku. His regular attacks do more damage than other characters' special moves. The final mode is Tournament mode, which, like Ultimate Battle 22, can only be played with 2 players. You could play it by yourself, but you'll just be beating up a character who can't fight back. And what do you get for winning a tournament?
You get nothing!
There's also a version of where you can use your build-up character in a tournament. The game modes are very underwhelming. They all feel pretty much the same to play, and there is no story mode to play through. If you're like me and absolutely hate the gameplay, then this game has nothing to offer, apart from the opening animation. That's pretty cool. I can't decide whether or not this game is worse than Ultimate Battle 22 or not. They share so many of the same problems, with their terrible controls and lack of engaging game modes. They also share the same strengths, with both having good music and an awesome opening animation. I guess the one advantage Final Bout has over Ultimate Battle 22 is that it did not cause me childhood trauma.